transported to a strange planet by a force from beyond the universe, the mightiest superheroes and supervillains of all have been gathered to fight the ultimate war. The first battles have been fought. Prisoners have been taken. And now, in their separate headquarters, the warring factions lick their wounds, marshal their strength, and ponder their plans of war. Stan Lee presents Marvel Superhero Secret Wars Tempest Without, Crisis Within. Dominating a bizarre, alien plane, a menacing structure far more massive than any on Earth stands. It is a fortress of awesome strength. Yet, it shudders as though made of straw before the incomprehensible power of the storm, a storm whose fury would tear mortal limb from limb in an instant. Far more dangerous than the storm outside the fortress, however, is the man within. Such is the terrifying, majestic might of the man called Magneto. Magneto says, wondrous, inspiring, but let the storm rage ever stronger. I have a guest to attend. A burst of magnetic force streams forth from the mutant master of magnetism, snaking through labyrinthine corridors to a vast hangar deep in the bowels of the fortress, where a makeshift metallic prison hovers suspended magnetically in mid-air. The force bolt strikes, freeing a tiny captive who flutters helplessly to the floor. Shaken and short of breath, the Avenger known as the Wasp lies still for aching moments then. Wasp says, This isn't our headquarters complex. I guess it's Magneto's lay. Maybe it'll look less foreboding at normal size. Nope. Wonder why he turned me loose before I suffocated. HMP. I'll have to remember to ask him that when I find him, and I am very definitely going to find him. Yes, indeed. Soon. Magneto says, good evening, Miss Van Dyne. Or do you prefer to be called Wasp? Do not bother trying to attack me, my dear. My person is magnetically shielded. Wasp says, well, la-da-di. You think I have to strike at you directly to hurt you, monster? Magneto says, what? Wasp says, I can bring this whole room down on top of you with my wasp sting. Magneto. Would that inconvenience you? Him. Magneto says, that would make us both quite uncomfortable. The weather outside is deadly. Since neither of us can leave here for quite some time, I suggest a truce. I want to talk. That is the reason I brought you here. Wasp says, you have a very obnoxious way of arranging a conversation. But, all right, it's your nickel. Talk. Magneto says, first, I apologize for the suffering I caused you. You are obviously a woman of intelligence and understanding as well as great beauty, and I am not the monster you believe I am, which is precisely what I wish to discuss. Wasp says, oh, my intelligence, understanding, and beauty are your non-monsterhood. Magneto says, why? Both. Meanwhile, many hundreds of miles distant, another, still more enormous citadel, one roughly the size of Chicago, also quakes before the wrath of the storm. And, inside this awesome edifice, laid claim to by the superheroes, the thing says, nice day. Her torch. Human Torch says, it's like all the hurricanes on Earth for 1,000 years rolled into one. Ben. Even as the thing. I doubt that you'd last a minute outside in that. The thing says, listen, Torchy, just give me some galoshes and a rain hat. And Human Torch says, Ben, look, that peak. The thing says, cripes. It's big enough to get its own zip code and it's coming right at us. Human Torch says, Ben, it's going to flatten this whole place. We don't have a chance. But at that moment, outside, Thor says, odds blood, by the All-Father's grace, let the strength of Thor be now. And let mine aim be true, as the mighty Hamam Jolner returns, as always, to the hand of the Thunder God. He smiles. His exultation in the unbridled fury of the elements is only redoubled by the flush of victory. Meanwhile, inside, She-Hulk says, put that dumb explosive arrow away, Hawkeye, as if it would have done any good against that Gibraltar-sized rock anyway. Hawkeye says, you'd be amazed at what this arrow can do, She-Hulk. She-Hulk says, we're on another planet, with more weird stuff per square inch than the Sunset Strip, and you think some trick arrow is going to amaze me? Hawkeye says, what I think, Greenie, is that forget it. All I can think about is my new bride. I miss her, you know. I don't want to be here. I want to be home. Elsewhere, as Iron Man and Captain Marvel check for damage. Iron Man says, in that one the raindrops must hit like .44 Magnum slugs. The thunder alone would kill a normal, unprotected man. Tell me, woman, how can Thor survive that? Captain Marvel says, he's tough. Iron Man says, he's a card-carrying thunder god, right? Isn't he, like, in charge of weather? Why doesn't he stop the storm? Captain Marvel says, I think he likes it. He's probably encouraging it. Iron Man says, encouraging it. Captain Marvel says, come on, Slowpoke. Iron Man says, no way, babe. My armor's built-in jet skates can't keep up with your life form even at your lowest speed. I'll check out the next level. And, in the complex's vast central communications chamber, where the Hulk, Captain America, and Mr. Fantastic confer. Hulk says, She-Hulk moved the 30-ton particle accelerator to the power plant. Cap, once I install this modulator, all the damage done by Magneto will have been repaired. Captain America says, great. Hulk, how's your work going, Reed? Mr. Fantastic says, I wish I had longer to study this fortress's alien technology. I've barely begun to figure out how to operate these monitors. I am still not certain how they work. Despite the weather, I've managed to keep tabs on Galactus, who's still keeping his mysterious vigil atop their distant peak, completely oblivious to the storm. Also, I've kept the villain's headquarters in focus. There seems to be an aura around it, perhaps a manifestation of a power absorption process. They may be somehow tapping the energy of the storm. I'd love to know what they're up to. At least, though, we'll have some warning if they attack. We can see everything outside of their citadel. Everything except what I really want to see. My son, my wife. Captain America says, she's pregnant, isn't she, Reed? They would be in deep trouble without you. I'd give anything for you to be with her now. Mr. Fantastic says, part of me is. Cap, part of me is. Hulk says, I wish you were home, too, Richards. To spare us your maudlin whimpering. You think I don't wish for my women? It just makes me want to crush the enemy that much more. And get it over with. Captain America says, you'll get your chance, Hulk, soon. We have 5 of our foes captured and imprisoned. We hold the edge, a big edge. I figure they'll gamble on one, desperate, all-out attack, probably as soon as the storm breaks. But if we're ready, if each of us does his duty and pulls his weight, our advantage and strength will guarantee victory. Mr. Fantastic says, you set a high standard for all of us, Cap. I pray that no one falls short. Cap, if you don't mind. Captain America says, not at all. Go and relax, Reed. The Hulk and I will take turns standing watch. And Spider-Man says, now there goes a man who looks really depressed. I don't blame him. This isn't exactly a day at the beach for any of us. It sends little chills up my spine whenever I think how far away from Earth we are. Oh, well, might as well try to make myself at home. This place was made for web swinging. All these pipes and tubes and doohickeys. Wonder what they're really for. They couldn't be here just for that friendly all-neighborhood Spider-Man. Me, could they? Nah, soon. Spider-Man says, geez, if I see another room bigger than the World Trade Center, or another giant gizmo that looks like a cosmic Cuisinart, well, what have we here? The X-Men have staked out their own private little HQ. Rather antisocial of them. Boy, it's still weird seeing Professor Xavier not in a wheelchair. Whatever they're yakking about is none of my business, so before they notice me, I'll just be on my way. Professor X says, we must take matters into our own hands. We do not belong here. Rogue says, I'll say. I once tussled with the Avengers. They all don't like me a bit and they are powerful suspicious of what I'm doing here with you all. Wolverine says, Rogue is an X-Man. Now, anybody gives her a hard time, I'll slice him to ribbons. Professor X says, control yourself, Wolverine. The last thing we need before we leave is an incident. Colossus says, must it ever be so, that normal men, even those not so normal, fear and hate us because we are mutants? Storm says, let them. But, then, let them also beware. We will obey no oppression. Professor X says, enough. The discussion is ended. Prepare yourselves. We go to join Magneto. Wait. I sense an eavesdropper. Spider-Man. Spider-Man says, yeah, I heard what you guys were saying, and I didn't like it and I'm going to rat on you. Wolverine says, come here, punk. Settle down and listen, or I'll hurt you and then you'll listen. What? Missed. Colossus. Colossus says, I have him, Wolverine. Spider-Man says, Chubby Chance, Slowpoke. Wolverine says, you webbed idiot. We can explain. Spider-Man says, tell it to the Marines, Techie. I heard enough. Storm says, he's too fast for us. In the open air, I could bring the full fury of the skies to bear against him, but here in these close quarters. Rogue, break free. Surely, his web can't hold you. Rogue says, I am trying. But it's stronger than steel cable. Nightcrawler says, I'll get him. I'm as fast and agile as he is. Spider-Man says, not on the best day of your life, Nightcrawler. Now, why is my spider sense tingling? Is that you again, Wolvie? Dummy. Nobody can sneak up on me. Those pigstickers may scare the barroom bullies, but to me you're a joke. Nightcrawler says, his strength. His speed. Unbelievable. He is awesome. His getting away. Wolverine says, we're lucky that's all he was trying to do. He really clobbered us. He made us look like fools. Like amateurs. Cyclops says, Spider-Man, wait. It's not what you think. I said stop, mister. Spider-Man says, and let you zap me with your concussion beams. Cyclops? Sure. CYA. Seconds later. Spider-Man says, Richards. Mr. Fantastic says, HM? Spider-Man. What's wrong, son? Calm down. It can't be. Spider-Man says, listen to me. We've got to. To what? I forget. What was it? I guess it couldn't have been too important. Cyclops says, what was that all about, Reed? Mr. Fantastic says, I'm not sure, Cyclops. Meanwhile, back at the X-Men's quarters, Professor X says, I recovered just in time. We are fortunate that Spider-Man did not wish to seriously injure me when he put me out of action. As much as I despise using my psionic abilities to forcibly reorder another's mind, there's too much at stake here to falter now. And there's no escape from my power. Elsewhere. Mr. Fantastic says, no doubt the pressure is getting to Spider-Man a little. It's not like him to crack, considering what we're facing here, though. Cyclops says, the worst thing for me is thinking about my wife back home, not knowing what happened to me, whether I'm dead or alive. We know so little about Spider-Man. Maybe he has a similar situation. Mr. Fantastic says, possibly. I suspect we'll never know. Professor X says, Cyclops. Return at once. Cyclops says, whoa. It wasn't necessary to fry my brain with your telepathic summons. Professor, I'm coming. Excuse me, Reed. Professor X hasn't asserted himself like this for years. He's acting like he did back when he first formed the X-Men firm, authoritative, decisive. Now that he's no longer confined to a wheelchair, I wonder if he plans to lead us into battle? And if he does, will his lack of experience in frontline combat bring us to disaster? And Professor X says, I have learned how to operate this vessel. It responds to thought commands of sufficient power. Apparently it was constructed by a race of telepaths. Despite the storm, we leave at once, my X-Men. Destination, Magneto's fortress. At that moment, in the lair of Magneto, Magneto says, I am not interested in alliance. Dr. Doom says, very well, then, Magneto. But be warned, if you do not serve me, I must consider you an enemy. Magneto says, I choose to make my own way, Doom. Dr. Doom says, so be it. Know you then, that your choice is irrevocable and you will live to regret it. Seconds later, Wasp says, where did you go? Is something wrong? Magneto says, it was nothing, Janet, nothing at all. Wasp says, well, I'm glad you're back. It's eerie here alone, the way the storm is shaking this place. Magneto says, you missed me? Now that is encouraging. Wasp says, don't be too encouraged, Magnus. I mean, Magneto says, why not? Have we not reached the beginnings of an understanding? Wasp says, the beginnings, maybe. Magneto says, we agree that when my eyes meet yours that there's something electric. Wasp says, I don't remember agreeing to that. Magneto says, but it is true, is it not? Wasp says, hey. Magneto says, the storm has granted us a brief interlude of peace here on this world of sudden death. Let us not deny our desires. Wasp says, no, no, no. Magneto says, there's so little time, Janet. Wasp says, oh. I guess. I suppose it's. Oh, why not? You have the iciest blue eyes I've ever seen, Magnus, and I guess. Their eyes have it. Meanwhile, in the massive fortress named Doom Base by its absolute master, Dr. Doom strides purposefully across a vast equipment-lined chamber off limits to all save himself and the subjects of his machinations. Dr. Doom says, Magneto's foolish refusal to pledge himself to my service is disappointing, but not surprising. With power such as his at my command, victory would come swiftly. Denied his power, it is even more imperative that I take other steps to strengthen my forces. All is ready. This alien technology, so rich, so subtle, so easily harnessed to serve my purpose. Energy, tapped from the raging Tempest. And two mortal subjects who dare to gamble for power knowing that to lose is death. For truly, here I shall test the limits of power a human body can contain. With the throwing of a switch, so the die is cast. Hear me. Power must be seized. Crave it. Welcome it. Drink it in, despite the pain, or it will destroy you. Moments later, Volcana says, you were right, Doctor. I did it. All that power is inside me now, but I can't begin to tell you how strange it feels. I can change back to human, can't I? You said I'd be able to. Titania says, I don't want to change ever. I'm at least a foot and a half taller and strong. So this is what it is to be strong. All my life I've dreamed of this. Where are the new clothes I designed? I can't wait to put them on. Dr. Doom says, right here, Miss McFerrin. Titania says, no. I am not Skeeter McFerrin anymore. I want a new name, something flashy. Like the others who serve you, Doom. Dr. Doom says, that will wait. Feist, Miss Rosenberg, you can revert back to human form at will. It was no easy task to provide for your mutation to be reversible. But otherwise, you could not eat or sleep, and your useful life to me would have been short. Indeed, in this form, your body is composed mostly of ionized plasma like the core of a star. You can radiate thermal energy from your skin at will. Do so, now. Volcana says, yes. Yes, I can. I can feel heat, just millions of degrees hot, swirling around inside of me, and I can control it. I don't understand how I can still be alive, all molten, seething and liquid inside like a volcano. Hey, I want a trade name too. Doctor, just like Skeeter does. I want to be called Volcana. Titania says, Titania. Like a titan. That's what I want to be called. I'll clear away the slag for you, Doom. Dr. Doom says, be careful. It is still red hot. Titania says, the way I feel, nothing can hurt me. Look how strong I am. Dr. Doom says, do not deceive yourself. You can be hurt, though not easily. Titania says, bah. This thing is too small, too light. It's no challenge. Give me something to crush, to lift to test my strength. Dr. Doom says, soon, my dear, you will prove your might in combat. Be patient. Come. Soon. Dr. Doom says, I have summoned you here to introduce our two new recruits, Volcana and Titania. Ladies, that is the robot Ultron, my indestructible, all-powerful bodyguard. The others are the Wrecker, Dr. Octopus, the Absorbing Man, and the Molecule Man. Wrecker says, where did they come from? I thought we was the only ones on this planet except for Captain America's jerk squad. Absorbing Man says, who knows? I wouldn't put it past Doomsy to build broads from scratch. Dr. Doom says, Octopus, Ultron, go at once to the 417 level hangar deck and prepare assault vehicles. The storm will break at dawn. Then we strike. Titania says, you, Absorbing Man, you look like the toughest man here. Get up. Absorbing Man says, what you got in mind? Titania says, I'm going to do anything I want to you. Everything I always wanted to do to everybody who used to be bigger and stronger than me. Maybe I'll just play with you. Or maybe I'll make you eat dirt. Or maybe. Absorbing Man says, woman, if you got something to prove, prove it tomorrow against the guys we're fighting. Titania says, you're backing down? Absorbing Man says, nope. I just ain't getting up. I got nothing to prove, to a dame. Wrecker says, hey, Missy, if you want to lip wrestle, I'm game. Titania says, I'll show you, tomorrow. Absorbing Man says, ho ho ho. Molecule Man says, boy, I hate that. I hate all that crashing around. I just can't stand violence. Volcano says, really? You, the infamous Molecule Man. I've always wanted to meet you. You're different than I expected. Molecule Man says, yeah, I know, shorter, right? Volcano says, no. More sensitive, I guess. Molecule Man says, hey, you're turning human. Volcano says, yeah. I just figured out how to do that. Molecule Man says, so you think I'm sensitive? Huh. My therapist says that, too. I've been seeing a therapist ever since the Avengers talked me out of destroying the Earth. Volcano says, look at the storm. Isn't that impressive? Molecule Man says, nah. It's only molecules interacting, you know. And I control molecules. I could disperse the storm, but my therapist says that I should let things take their natural course, so I won't. Unless Doom asks me to. Now he's impressive. He always knows what to do. Volcano says, I know what you mean. Such charisma. Molecule Man says, I don't think my therapist would approve of him or this war. I can't help believing in Doom, though, and if he wants to win this war, I'm going to help him, even if it means ripping this whole planet apart. Meanwhile, deep in the bowels of the headquarters of the superheroes, an imposing figure strides through the cavernous prison hole past the block of cells where Pile Driver, Bulldozer, Thunderbolt, and Kang the Conqueror are held in psychostasis to a certain adjoining chamber. Here, in a special serogenerative healing capsule, lies the beautiful Asgardian goddess known as the Enchantress. Thor says, awake, sorceress, and let us speak. Enchantress says, Thor, have you come to gloat at my humiliation? A goddess battered down to lie writhing in the dust at the feet of a green-skinned mortal wench? By Fafnir's scales. Did she scar me? Did her fists bruise my face? Is my beauty? Thor says, unmarred, vain one. Reed Richards saw to that. This machine healed your injuries. Enchantress says, why have you come hither? Did your mortal friends forsake you? Thor says, nay, but they are mortal. There are things of which only gods may speak, and which only gods can understand. You and I are the only two immortals of Asgard on this world. We must talk. Enchantress says, very well, but elsewhere. I will endure this dungeon no longer. Thor says, but here or elsewhere, you are still my prisoner. Enchantress says, perhaps. Come, Thunder God. Sometime later. Hulk says, I don't understand. I rack my brains and all I get is a headache. The ideas, the answers used to come so easily. What's wrong with me? Have I just hit a dry spell? I'm so disoriented. Of course. Being put here in this mess by a being beyond anyone's comprehension couldn't be helping my concentration. That must be it. Must be. Suddenly, Captain America says, what? It's dawn, and the storm has broken. Hulk, why didn't you wake me? Now is when they are most likely to attack. Sound the alarm. Get everyone to battle stations. Hurry, man. Hulk says, all right. I just didn't notice. Don't raise your voice to me, you star-spangled tin tyrant. I'll rip you in half. At that moment, outside, Molecule Man says, there it is, Doom. It's huge. Dr. Doom says, I see no signs of a sortie coming out to blunt our attack. Can it be we've caught them unawares? Bah! I'd thought better of Captain America and Reed Richards than that. They are fools, indeed. Prepare to ram. Quickly. To the attack. Wrecker. Yours is the primary objective, freeing the prisoners. The rest of you, strike at will. Wreak havoc and slay whom you can. Molecule Man says, what about me? What should I do, Doom? Dr. Doom says, yours is the most important role, Mr. Reese. You must remain at my side, vigilant. Molecule Man says, got it. Seconds later, in the quarters occupied by Mr. Fantastic, the Human Torch and Ben Grimm. Human Torch says, Reed. We under attack. Flame on. The Thing says, great. What good am I like this? Mr. Fantastic says, Ben, you'd better stay here. Johnny and I will go find Cap. And Human Torch says, stay back. Whoever you are. My arm. It's broken. Ribs, too. Titania says, oh. You little jerk. You're just making it worse for yourself when I get to you. And I will. But then, Titania says, gone. He cut through the floor and dropped himself and his partners to a lower level. Cute. Elsewhere. She-Hulk says, wonder what that noise was. Volcano says, so much for the She-Hulk. And Captain Marvel says, I thought the storm was over, but I keep hearing thunder. Unless it's the Hulk belching. I'd better go see. Dr. Octopus says, blast. Somehow she rolled with it at the last instant. But another sledgehammer blow will crush her skull. Hawkeye says, get away from her. Turkey. Dr. Octopus says, Hawkeye is deadly accurate with that bow and armed with a high-tech arsenal of arrows. I'm not the best against foes with long-range firepower. I'd better play it safe and leave him for one of the others. At that moment, Spider-Man says, Iron Man, we've got trouble. Iron Man says, I'm coming, man, as soon as I get my armor on. Ultron, he had us both dead to rights, but he doesn't see us. I'll wait till he goes, then pull Webhead out. And Hulk says, I caused all of this and I alone have the strength to set it right. And I'm going to start at the source. Dr. Doom says, the Hulk. Molecule Man says, oh goody. He's mine. Captain America says, Hulk, fall back. We've got to gather up the others, consolidate, retreat to a defensible position. Come on. Hulk says, all right. I'm coming. Moments later, Dr. Doom says, Wrecker, I see you were successful. Wrecker says, piece of cake, but I couldn't find the Enchantress. Molecule Man says, you should have seen Wrecker. I drove the Hulk away. Look, here come the others back. And we have no casualties. Dr. Doom says, we also have fewer kills than I'd hoped. But no matter. We have accomplished much here today. And to finish it, we shall level this place so that no stone remains on stone.